Vedaprabhu, Dr. Vedaprabhu, it is an absolute honor to have you on here. I just got wind of some exciting news that I want to make sure we color the entire episode with, and that's that you were shortlisted for a 2026 British Entrepreneur of the Year award, and specifically in innovation. Do I have this correct?
Right. That's right for that. Yeah. Yeah. But
This
first of
is,
all, I want to say thank you for having me on the show, So thank you. It's my
yes,
pleasure to be on your show.
no.
Yeah.
It is
So
my
yeah.
honor to be receiving you here today. And I want to dive more into that later on. But before we get into what happened with the award and what went on, let's get to know the man behind the award, right? And I'd really like to talk a little bit about, I see here in the background you have BeamGrid, right, as one thing as well. So can you tell me a little bit about BeamGrid just in your own words so I have more of an understanding the way you see it?
Yeah. I would put it succinctly as BeamGrid is about building intelligent RF infrastructure for a world where connectivity, sensing, and energy move through space, air, and structures, not only through cables, towers, and batteries. So it's a way of integrating uh, RF technology into bringing in connectivity, sensing, and energy from space. So what we are doing is we are weaving a single fabric of RF around all these different technologies, so that it makes people's lives much more easier and better their standards of living. That's what if I
And
can put it in a very, yeah, yeah.
RF technologies really are pervasive in our lives, whether we know it or not. So to know that you are creating organization and infrastructure around RF and maximizing it and helping it scale even further, this is going to be super important. Most people know it as 5G potentially, or so. So they have idea that Wi-Fi exists in our environment and all these other things, but I don't think they really understand it the way you do. Because one important note to make is you are actually, not only do you have your own company with BeamGrid, but you are also a principal engineer, a recognized principal engineer at another company. Can you give me more information about that?
Yeah. I mean, I just, it's good that you brought it up. I should be clear that I'm speaking here in my capacity as the founder and CEO of BeamGrid. Professionally, I'm also a principal antenna engineer at a company called Chelton here in UK. So which reflects my wider experience in advanced RF and antenna engineering. So that's what I do. But BeamGrid is my independent deep tech venture, you know, which is focused on intelligent RF infrastructure for future connectivity, sensing, and wireless energy systems. Chelton is more like into airborne and defense kind of area.
Now, I want to take the chance to get into this a little more before we dive into the rest of it, unless it feeds directly into it with BeamGrid for the Innovation Award. How did this come about? Is this something you have to apply for, or something that people elect you for?
So like I think it works through nominations. I think I would have got some nominations from, I don't know who that is, but I would have got some nominations. And I understand that the Great British Entrepreneur Awards has a very stringent judge panel for it. So unfortunately, that the judges think that we could be the finalists, and we are the finalists. So that's all I know about it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. No, this is fantastic and very exciting news. So let's get to the origins of BeamGrid for you. Now, what people don't know is before we got started, I was talking about my own challenges with entrepreneurship, and I made the faux pas of saying that entrepreneurs are born, they're not made. And you so rightly not only inspired me at the same time that you did this, but you also said, wait a minute, I truly believe entrepreneurs can be made. So, is the origins of BeamGrid a story of a made entrepreneur, self-made?
Yes, I think. I mean, that's a very introspective, deep question, and I would actually like to say that the origin of BeamGrid uh, falls in the path of saying that entrepreneurship is can be made. You can make an entrepreneur rather than thinking that it should be one should be born with the skills of an entrepreneurship. I say that because if you let me just, if you're okay, I'll just take you through the BeamGrid origins.
Yeah.
How did we come up? So BeamGrid was not born in a polished boardroom. It was never like that. It didn't start like that. It was born between a contract work that I took up initially in a company, and then in between some difficult commutes I did to another company, moment of my professional misalignment, technically sometimes trying to reassess whether I am in the right technological area, and then a decision to back my own technical conviction that, okay, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, this is where I can contribute to the world, and I will stick myself to this. That conviction, it just sprang in me. Sometimes they say it just happens. So one fine day it just clicked, and it has never gone away from me since then. And I just keep that fire alive, keep the spark alive, and just go on every day, day in and day out. And it's been like 2 years now since I built BeamGrid, and with the great help of some partners, advisors, uh, some friends. We have been able to take this to a good shape over the past 2 years. We have won grants from the UK government, UK grant. We have won a grant from the European Space Agency. So we are going in a we are going uphill now. So definitely seeing all this, I'm not saying we have arrived. There is a lot to do. We are still in the process of building this up, So, but I would say entrepreneurship can definitely be built.
Well, congratulations on the government contracts as well. That's how you know what you're doing is essential. It's an essential step forward. Now, can I ask why? I love that you bring up the element of conviction and technological conviction. Were there people who were telling you RF is a space not to go into and not to focus on?
Yes, when I first began my career way back 20 years ago, I'm an Indian. I'm coming from India. Okay, so I'm an Indian, and I had the idea of going abroad. So when you talk about 20 years ago going abroad in the field of antennas and RF, which is essentially a defense territory where people talk, this is full of like limitations about classified things, not getting access. So I was always talked out of it, like don't even think about going into antennas. So this was what was told to me. I don't want to identify myself as an antenna guy because now I've come far away from it. Like I've tried to diversify my field later on in the last 2 years. But for those listening who are from the antennas field, it was a challenge that I had to combat when I started 20 years ago, way back in India, and then moved abroad, and then moved into Europe, and then moved into UK, built my knowledge base in different countries, Spain, Germany, France, Netherlands, whatnot. So different places, academic and professional wise as well. I would say if you pack in that skill set, nothing can stop you. I think nothing can stop you. I mean, there is still some certain things that needs to be looked at when it comes to the way technology is looked at. I think science is beyond boundaries always. So I think science and technology is beyond country boundaries, beyond any kind of geographical, political boundaries, because science is beyond all that. One shouldn't allow people to be categorized based on nationalities or anything. That's my. So this is the kind of for your question, to answer your question was, were there people who stopped? Or so the only stopping comes because there is still the thought that skill set and technology is location based. I don't believe in that. I really don't believe in that. I think it has to be diversified, because going forward with the advent of AI and technologies which are coming up, it's all about globalization. I think there are a lot of talks about sovereignty coming up now, and I think sovereignty is important. But when you have sovereignty, you should also think about how collectively you can integrate all of that from different countries and build something greater for going to the next step away from Earth. Probably that's what Elon Musk is doing now. So
Yeah, yeah,
going to
yeah,
Mars,
yeah.
going to Mars, or the next frontier. We all need to come together for that. That's the idea. So I don't think people will never stop you. I don't think people will stop you. People or nations will not stop you. If you have the interest, if you are focused, if you have the inspiration to carry on, I think nobody can stop. Yeah.
I'm so grateful that you shared that. I also had no idea that people were often predetermined to certain career paths based on location. And it could just be, I have a certain worldview that maybe others don't share, but I love that. I've always believed that if you have the vision and you have the conviction, you can move forward to something. The trick is getting the vision that you can latch onto. Right. And so I love that you brought that up and that you didn't let that inform your decision. You in fact went against the grain and decided to go exactly where your intuition was telling you to go. Now, I've understood now that you're RF antenna, and this is something that you is a part of what you do, but not all of what you do, right? So, what made you decide to become a founder rather than just remain in a technical career?
I always felt one thing was very innate in me from a young age to be creative about something. I think the reason of existence is creation. So that's my mantra. So consumption makes you kind of. I'm not saying consumption is wrong, but consumption does not give you as much happiness as creation gives. I always want to create, and the only the biggest path, the path that comes to my mind when you talk about creation is without any frontiers or without any boundaries or without any limits. It's only the kind of founder, or like you found something, you create. You are the responsible, 100% responsible for that activity. So that kind of inspiration is what I derived from when I built to be a founder and CEO. Of course, this is not that I had only that conviction. There is also what we call in the Indian philosophy this thing about nirvana. It's called where you negate things, like saying I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this. So you arrive at what you are. So that kind of thinking. So when I came into thinking about becoming a founder or a CEO, I have I have seen myself, I've seen obstacles in different areas, which have also directed me to that path. It's not that I was completely focused on getting to become a founder or a CEO. I had experience from all the areas. I tasted what they looked like and what it was like, and got my lessons. And then, God forbid, now I'm happy being a founder and CEO. So yeah, that's what it is.
But no, that's very profound, and I'm grateful that you shared that because that level of deduction, philosophically, spiritually, is super important as well. To have that expansive view of your life as it's happening and saying, then it wasn't for me, it wasn't for me, but then what is? And you continue to pursue that line of inquiry, arriving at where you are now. And like you said, you're thoroughly finding excitement and inspiration and joy being a part of what you're working on. So let's move over into what BeamGrid is working on these days. Well, I don't want to get ahead of it actually. You sign the papers, you get the incorporation, everything's going great, and you mentioned partners. What was that journey like? Because I'm assuming, did it start all together at once, or did you get all the papers together? You got it all, and you're like, all right, it's time to go. And now I need co founders or partners to work with. Is that the way that story unfolded, or were there other
I'm afraid
elements for
not. I have to say I'm afraid not. That was not how it unfolded. It was days and nights of toil, work from my side, a lot of disappointments in the initial stages, not getting funding. This whole saga of building a company is about getting the grants, getting the funds. So I did, before I got this, I must, they say to get one shot, try 100 shots. So this looks very nice on the surface, but on the internal, and below the water surface, there has been a lot of duck paddling done. Like we put out. I mean, like we started in September 2024. That was when I incorporated the company as a contractor in 2024. And going on from 2024 to January 2025, I was in the contracting business. And then from 2025 to Jan 2025 to September 2025, it was a complete introspection of how to get things into my own company. So I spent a lot of time trying to write grants, proposals. Fortunately, the UK government has is one of these. The UK government is considered to be the second most entrepreneur friendly country in the world, next to, of course, the US. So, and there are a lot of options for you to apply for grants in the UK. So, I was fortunate enough to be in the right time, in the right place to apply for those grants. I did spend a lot of time preparing them. I submitted a quite a few, and some didn't get through, some got through. One got through, and that was the Innovative grant. It was not a big amount of money, but it was enough to run a kind of a grant project kind of a thing for 6 months, and we were able to deliver it very well, and we got a good recognition from the monitoring officer. The team that was there was very helpful. We had people whom we subcontracted, we had people whom we employed, we had advisors. So we had gone through this part, and that was when I think that led to the next big thing. That's the European Space Agency recognizing our efforts, and we proposed a different concept to them, like trying to get satellites from the trying to get internet from the satellites. So to the phone directly. D2D, it's called D2D and so we connect from the satellites to the phones directly. I think that's what is happening next. A lot of traction is gaining on that. So the ESA, European Space Agency, funded us on that now. We are currently on the project. We are executing it with our team. We are building designs for that. So yeah, Philip, I think it's not come easy. Definitely, it's not come easy. There have even now it is not easy. Like even now we are putting it. Like we are trying to put it forward very strongly. But the vision pulls you. The vision pulls you. That's the inspiration. Yeah.
It's fascinating because, it's one thing to say I'm going to make a to-do list app and that's going to be my SaaS product. And, you can start it up with even just a little bit of know-how and coding and minimal investment. But when you're working on actual hardware and actual technology and that requires infrastructure, now you start looking at needing money to get anything done. And these are usually the things that are also the most essential. We don't need another to-do app. I'm not against it, but we don't need it. But what we do need is innovative technologies that can create the kinds of experiences in daily life, like you're talking about, direct satellite, direct to phone, internet, and the list goes on. And so it's amazing that you decided to take that on when so many other people who are, and I put in air quotes here, entrepreneur, the first thing they do is they look at a product because they think they can move it really fast with some software, flip it, hopefully get some sales, and then maybe get some kind of investment from that. But it's so much more difficult to do it the way that you did. And yet this was your conviction to do so. And like you said, it is proven that it is still a challenge, but it's a challenge that you're inspired by. And that's an interesting phenomenon, to be inspired by an obstacle instead of to be deflated by an obstacle. Do you think that there's anything in your background growing up that may have given you this nature, that to feel inspired by an obstacle, or is it because you're convicted and you're interested in this technology that you do find the emotional response is one of inspiration as opposed to deflation?
I think that I derive a lot of my inspiration from my parents. They were really hardworking parents, and I've grown up seeing them put it really in the game. I am inspired by their examples. Uh, and I have a lovely wife who supports this, whatever I do. That's another aspect to it. And my daughter is always my inspiration. She's a 4-year-old and I'm very happy with it. So family, very well supporting family, and an innate desire to contribute to technology. I think that's what keeps me going. Yeah. That's my fuel. That's my mantra, if you would ask.
Hey,
Yeah.
there we go. Now, I love this because now this sets the tone for the man behind the award, that we discussed earlier. This is where it's coming from. These are the types of inclinations you have as a person. And now everybody knows that deep tech companies are, like, as we stated, a lot harder than software companies. What has been the hardest part so far for you? Is it the funding, the credibility, the loneliness, something else?
I think I oftentimes, this is a very good question, Philip. I oftentimes feel that investors, when they invest in a company, look for short-term returns. So that's true for a SaaS-based. I'm not against it. By the way, I'm not against SaaS or software-based companies. I completely recognize the importance of software and SaaS. Right? The amount of turnover time that takes for a software company to bring out things, the turnover time it takes for a hardware company to bring out things is totally different. Because in hardware, you really need to fabricate stuff and actually build them. And there's a lot of processes involved. The production cycle for a hardware is different from the production cycle for a software. So this is one of the challenges. I do acknowledge that some of the investors who invest in hardware companies do acknowledge this, but most of the investors look at short-term returns. That is one challenge. You can't show in your life cycle that okay, I'll have this ready by next 6 months. No, you can't do that. It's impossible to do that because it depends on the technology. So that's the reason why a lot of times the funding with respect to deep tech companies, of hardware deep tech companies, becomes a bit stalled, or it becomes a bit difficult to give. And that has really impeded us. But that has been offset by a very good thing that the government does. For the government recognizes this gap, this fallback short-termy, and it allocates funding for that aspect of development. So that they call it R&D funding. It's not company funding, but they call it R&D funding. So it's not a production-based funding. That's where we still need to develop. Like if the government can allocate a production-based funding rather than R&D funding for a new concept, that would change the game a bit. But that's not the case right now. So there's a bit of a work that needs to be done to pull off an investor to believe in you. And also for a hardware company in its inception, like us, like we have just born 2 years ago. It's very hard to give the investors a belief that okay, they can invest in you unless the founder or the person behind the company himself has a technical background which can propel his or her company into forward trajectory. So I think partly because of my background of having been in the antenna field for the last 20 years, and maybe we were able to pull off something. Maybe that was able to influence a bit on how the decisions were made for us for the companies to invest in us. But I do think that does play a role for hardware companies, especially to have a background for the founding members to have a background in hardware when they establish the company, which is actually the case when people establish hardware companies. They usually have that background. But if you are going to just come into the hardware field by swapping from a software field, I think it would be very difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I've been curious about this since we started. In my notes, I have something called EchoNet, right? What is EchoNet, and what is its relation to RF sensing and health monitoring?
So I would call EchoNet as our birth symbol. They were the symbol for BeamGrid's birth. It was the funding we received from Innovate UK, UKRI wing of it's the innovation hub in UK. So they granted us a funding of 50K pounds, so for us to carry out this venture, EchoNet. So in EchoNet, what we did is we said, look, we have structures, we have legacy structures, we have vintage structures, Britain is full of structures, so a lot of history is there behind it. But these structures may age, they may just go to because we have like more than 600, 700 years of structures which are still existing. So like bridges, tunnels, coverage, all of these things. So we just thought, what if you want to monitor the health of these structures, what can we do? So we just created an RF sensor which can automatically sense the stress, strain, or friction, or any kind of deformation which takes place on those structures, and communicate it wirelessly to a handheld device, and telling with the AI classification model what is the health of the structure. So that's what we did in EchoNet. This has a direct implication that it helps you to remotely monitor the health of aging structures.
When we say structure, just so I understand correctly, we're talking like infrastructure in a city, whether it's a building or Similar to echolocation, the way an animal may do
Yes,
to find distance, but even
yes,
more
we use the
involved.
same technology. We use the same technology. Yeah. The bats, when
That
they
is,
fly, the bats have this
yeah.
sonar reflection. Exactly the same. Yeah.
And that's what's so fascinating about what you're doing. If I were to start, and I keep bringing up to-do list apps, I swear I don't hate to-do list apps, but it's interesting that you don't need to worry about compliance per se, or need government partners to get that to even begin. But there are certain things, and the things that you're building with BeamGrid, that do in fact need the consideration of parties that are very instrumental to the everyday fabric of people's lives. And it's because it's going to be pushing the needle forward and making life better. And that really is a far more gargantuan task. And I remember, and we brought up his name earlier, Elon Musk. I remember him saying something about it's equally hard to start a hard company as it is to start any other company, right? So, Vedaprabhu, I ask you: have you found it to be true that that you could have gone software, and it probably would have been difficult, just as difficult for its own reasons, but it's so much more gratifying to see it this way, isn't it?
Because it is gratifying, definitely, to see it this way. I also say that what we just said about having that obstacle about compliance and granting companies which have to take this forward, we are still battling those battles even now. So uh, it's very hard to get the yeah from the infrastructure owners, what I don't want to say everybody, but there are
Sure,
some
sure.
the key players whom we do need to get their approval for before we go forward. So that task is always there. I think it's good. It's good to have some kind of proper investigation, introspection, and not introspection, a proper assessment of whether your technology actually fits into it, because those are health critical, mission critical, and many critical, safety critical stuff. So it's good to assess the technology before you actually onboard it onto your infrastructure. So, I mean, we are building it to that standard, and we are hoping that we will make a mark with all the big players like, I can say, National Highways, National Grid. So, yeah. So these are the big players here.
Hey, look, I know for a fact in America we need EchoNet big time. There are things that are just they haven't been looked at since 1918, probably. I swear to you. Um, but with that said, you mentioned the satellite to phone, or D to D direct connectivity. What's the problem you're trying to solve there? What inspired you? Was it just an ambitious goal that you knew BeamGrid could achieve, or was there a specific problem that prompted you to want to go in that direction?
So the thing is, it's about trying to, the most of the satellite to phone communication right now is about data, voice, SMS, emergency. This is it. So it's all about a very low bandwidth data rates. So you can only send a fixed amount of data through that. So what we are trying to do is trying to see if we can get in video on the satellite phones directly. Not from the satellite to the base station and then to the phone, but directly from the satellite to the phone, a video transmission. That's what we are working on. As of now, as I speak, there are not many companies doing this. There are modems which are being put on in the market for supporting this, but the antennas, the RF part of it has not yet been built as of June 2026, as we speak now. So that's what we are focusing on, because we think that will be a game changer to get in video on the phones directly from satellites. Uh, yeah, we are on the right track. I think we are putting a lot of effort into this. We are using latest technologies. Good team we have for working on this. So yeah, we will be there. Uh, the upcoming LEO satellites by Starlink, Elon Musk, Starlink, Amazon, Leo, Project Kuiper, or anything of these LEO satellites which are coming up in the sky, increasing their network, will be an enabler for this phone set device. What we're trying to do is to take the heavy lifting done by the satellites and do something on the phone itself, so that satellites don't do everything. So let's do it on the phone side and make it a little bit easier for the satellites, so that their launching costs also come down. So that's what we're planning on. Yeah.
That's a massive, massive breakthrough when it happens, and I have no doubt that it'll happen because you're right. As far as I can tell, our satellite function, even on the latest iPhone, is just making sure you can send a message that says "help." That's as much as we can get done. So to know that we're going to be able to just stream videos, there's really no limits once we reach that. If we can solve that,
So adding to that software, the coding in the video codecs, software processing, that's going to be our helper. So we're going to need efficient coding algorithms for the videos so that they occupy a very low bandwidth, and then we can still transmit the videos through the satellite. So I'm just saying that hardware and software always go in hand in hand. You can't live without the
absolutely.
other. Always, yeah.
Absolutely. And now, is this because I have in my notes here that there is a bottleneck that exists with 5G and even 6G with antennas and non terrestrial networks? Can you sort of elaborate more on what this is looking like?
So the bottleneck for NT and going onwards, non-terrestrial networks, as far as I can see, is that there are a lot of development that has taken place in the satellite scenario, but a lot of focus has to be given to the ground station as well and the mobile phones as well. That's where which we are a bit lacking in terms of, and also the next focus should be on terrestrial networks and non-terrestrial networks catering. Like if a phone wants to connect to the terrestrial, it connects to the terrestrial. If it wants to connect to the satellite, it connects to the satellite. And situations may change for a phone when it's moving. Sometimes it may be better in the ground station than in the satellite, and things like that. So that kind of seamless handover for different scenarios is still challenging to achieve. It has been implemented, but still not that good. So that's something where I see NTN as the direction in which NTN has to go to support TN and NTN together. That's what I see. And 5G is
See,
now, yeah,
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah. And 5G is now going on to become 6G, and 6G is full of so many new technologies. Uh, they're talking about terahertz waves, talking about quantum. So it's a new era coming in. So I mean, with the advent of AI, anything is possible now. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I think you're uniquely qualified to handle a question that I think has become a meme on social media for people who are tech forward. And that is, I often see this, and this isn't planned. This is just something that has occurred to me just now. Is people will often say, I remember I used to have 3G, and that was enough for so many things. And now, if I ever have 5G LE or some other form of it, suddenly my phone doesn't want to do anything. Now, is this a matter of optimizations that are taking place on the back end for all the infrastructure that we have? Or is there really something else that's going on? Because many people complain that 3G used to be good enough, and now even 4G isn't good enough now that we have 5G.
So I think it's more of a regulation based. With all I know, all I can say is it's more of a regulation. More stringent regulations have come into place now because of the increased power requirements and what else and what not. Because the IT, the International Telecommunications Union (ITU), the FCC, are bringing in new regulations to combat all these radiations coming out of devices. But that may turn off some good capabilities, like you say, in some cases, like you may hinder some functionalities of the phone because of those regulations. Now, as we designed this phone for the satellite to mobile communication, that's one of our biggest challenge: how to combat something called as SAR, such as specific absorption rate for how when you hold the phone here on your ear,
Right.
it emits radiation. So we need to keep in mind that the radiations are not high enough to damage your tissues or your body tissues. So that regulations are made by the FCC, the ITU, all of those. There is a regulation that says it cannot exceed this. So to do that, we may have to trade off certain functionalities of designing into the phone, which also will take a setback. So this is the challenge. This is the challenge. That's why BeamGrid is in
Yeah.
inception. This is the challenge we're addressing. So to combat this kind of balance between regulation, the requirement, all of these things. Yeah, yeah.
That's fascinating, and thank you for indulging me in that question. Totally, off grid question. Now, I have here in my notes something super important that I want to ask you, and that is, how important was it to have Innovate UK and the ESA linked opportunities being given to BeamGrid early on for credibility?
I think that was the game changer for us. It's been a gift from the skies. I mean, it's amazing that we got this. We have done our bit to get this. We have put a lot of effort into getting this, but effort is not everything. You have to be lucky as well. So there was a bit of luck, some effort, and the grace of the European Space Agency and UK government to grant us this Innovate UK grant and European Space Agency grant. It has affected us in a very positive way, especially for a guy like me coming from India, coming to Europe, coming to UK, supporting me in this venture. It's not a small thing. It's a really a big thing. I really appreciate what I have received from them, so on. And I want to say outward to everyone, just shun all of those stereotypic views about countries not supporting each other. That's it. It's an open world. If you have the skill set, you're welcome. That's it. Yeah.
Love that. Now, what have you had to learn as a founder that no engineering degree has ever prepared you for?
Grit, grit. That's the thing, grit. Fail, again climb up. Fail, again climb up. Fail, again climb up. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, that's the you can only learn that in entrepreneurship because the failure is the certainty. Oh, I love it. What's one mistake or setback or humbling moment that sort of changed the way you viewed how you were going to be building Beam Group?
Yeah. I think we were focusing a lot on getting a lot of grants. So I thought at the time, I said, okay, this is it. We don't have to go behind grants always. It's about contribution. It's enough to say, okay, this is it. And we get this and we start working on it and make an impact. Because this nonstop mm, pursue, I mean, it's required. Money is required, but money is just an end. So after that, you need to contribute to the betterment of the world. Like you need to, once you have the funding and all of those things, I think you start contributing to the technology. So it's no point trying to, of course, you need to have your runway. You have to increase your runway. You need to broaden it as and when required. But I don't think one should focus on that for a long time, which we did in the early stages of BeamGrid. Me trying to pull in a lot of grants, which was not right, I think. And I don't do it. I don't think I should do that. I should follow that kind of an approach anymore. I think I should be more focused on uh, selective, selective investor based assessment for our being with technology.
That's fascinating because there are some people who, if it worked the first time and it got us from A to B, that doesn't mean that B to Z or Z will actually be the exact same thing every step of the way. And you taking stock of that and saying, well, maybe there are certain people we want to specifically focus on working with. And not all money is green, I think is the simple way of putting it, right? With that said, what does success look like for BeamGrid for the next 3 to 5 years?
So, but for the next 3 years, we would look as having established ourselves as a NT-ND2D smartphone handset antenna system provider globally in the 3 years. With us having extended our foots in major global smartphone manufacturers. You know what they are, so I don't want to say that. I don't have to say it. So, yeah, and we also would want to put our foot in private 5G networks and also into infrastructure monitoring. And we also have a moonshot project, which we have just kept silent. That is space-based solar power, where we harness power from the sky, from the sun, and beam it to the earth. So that's also something we will take up in the future. It's getting traction nowadays in the UK as well. So, I mean, that's one of the inspirations for the name of BeamGrid. Beam from the space, grid on the earth, and rectangle, you catch the energy. But yeah, we're gonna focus on that as well. So going on in 3 years' time, I can't say for 5 years, but I can see 3 years ago. So yeah, that's where yeah.
Is there a bigger vision for you? What changes in the world if BeamGrid succeeds?
So we will be a category defining company. So we will define a new category, like I said in the before. I said before in the starting of this podcast that we will define the RF infrastructure as a complete continuous fabric for connectivity, sensing, and energy from space. So we are going to put forward all the RF and ITARA technology that is currently gifted to the humankind from our respected legions of champions before us, like Maxwell, Einstein, Newton, all of these people. So we're just carrying on their legacies, So that's what we're doing. So, and also build legacies for the future generations that come forward in terms of building a simple RF infrastructure fabric for connectivity, sensing, and energy.
Now, after people listen to this, they'll have some sense of BeamGrid and its story. But let's say, 10, 15 years down the line with, you know, AI is changing things every month now. So saying 10, 15 years from now is insane to say. But let's just go there and say people are going to look back at the BeamGrid story, the origin of it. What do you hope they understand about what it actually took to get it off the ground and to get it in to the world that we live in today, building infrastructure and shaping infrastructure?
We would want to just to be remembered, let's say in 15 years from now, as a company which tried to make a small dent in creating an RF infrastructure fabric that brings in connectivity, sensing, and energy from space for everybody, access to everybody. So we would be because I don't think in 15 years time we would still be uh, focused on technology that we built today 15 years before. So we would most likely be identified for our values rather than our technology, because technology grows by time. In 15 years time, when we're doing something else, I mean, all the fan companies are not doing the same thing which they were doing 20 years ago. Facebook is not doing Facebook now, so they're into Meta. They're into Meta now. SpaceX was built with another vision before. It was PayPal before. Now it has become SpaceX. So, I mean, there are different things that people actually graduate over 20 years. But what we would like to be remembered is we would like to be remembered for some values that BeamGrid has in its inception inculcated. So, we want to create an impact. We want to be rigorous, and we want to have a sovereignty that integrated into our technology. That is our value right now. These are the values. So the if you would ask me, these are the pillars on which BeamGrid is built on.
I love it. And there's an element of connection at the heart of all this story, because what you're fundamentally allowing people to do, like you said, is to become sovereign. Because if you're connected to everything, everywhere, at all times, that means possibilities are possible at all times within the scope of the tools that you have at your hand. And BeamGrid is making that possible. BeamGrid is working to make that a reality more and more so every day. And I think that's at the heart of the story here. And to know that this is the cause that you're championing, that you've pushed forward on, that you've seen obstacles even from the inception of the story, when people told you, I don't know if you're even going to, number one, if you're even going to succeed, but number two, really that's the field you're choosing and you're leaving to somewhere else. There were all these things. Some people have the fortune of having people believe in them early on from the beginning. This is not one of those stories. This is one of those stories where people were telling you otherwise. And yet here you are, funded and evolved and graduated from looking for grants. Not that it's the never going to happen again, but the fact that you've begun to shape the business model around innovation, which is a very difficult thing to do. You said it yourself. There aren't necessarily funds set aside for research and development in exactly the way that BeamGrid has had to come up. And so it's important for anyone out there that's listening that wants to get into entrepreneurship to understand this is not a story, like you said, of a company that was born in a boardroom and moved forward and effortlessly arrived to where it is today, and it's still fighting for its space. No, this is a story of grit through and through. And so if you have an idea, hope that you listen to this story and you take it to heart, that you should see it all the way through, all the way through. But with that said, I want to roll out the red carpet for you. I think it's time that you let people know where they can connect with you. uh, whatever social channel you may be most active on, a website, maybe even just to watch a video of what you're all about and what your technology looks like, where would you send them?
So I am very active on LinkedIn, which is the main portal where I share all of my ideas and all of the developments in BeamGrid. You can follow Vedaprabhu Basavarajappa on LinkedIn. You can type a name and it should come up. And also we have a BeamGrid page on LinkedIn. So that's also where we put in most of our updates. I also have a YouTube channel that I maintain. Some of my musical interests are there. I'm also, because I'm interested by frequencies, the lowest frequency that is the music at 20 kilohertz to what the lowest voice frequency, that's the frequency where music is. So I'm always fascinated by frequency. So if you can get my music list there, and you can also see some of my YouTube videos, which wherein I bring in some advice for IT engineers who are inspired to make a career in this. I have some videos for them as well. You can also watch some of my presentation thesis defenses during my PhD, during my doctoral. I mean, anyway, it's for you to check out my YouTube channel. And I do sometimes tweet occasionally. Yeah. Instagram, I don't use much. Yeah, these are the
Sure.
places. My email is veda@beamgrid.co.uk. You can reach me on that anytime for advice, for partnership, for contact, or whatever opportunity you want with us. You can reach me on veda@beamgrid.co.
Veda@beamgrid.co.uk. I'm stoked. I'm definitely super grateful that you took the time and made the time to share your story here today, because it's not every day that you hear someone see every no before they even got to the yes inside of themselves. And that's a super important story to share. I hope this isn't the last time that you and I get the chance to chat. I'll certainly be connecting with you on LinkedIn. And Vedaprabhu, I can't thank you enough for stopping by today.
Thank you for it was a pleasure to have talked to you. You brought the best out of me. Thank you.